The A340 has fuel tanks located in the wings, in the center section of the fuselage, and in the Trimmable Horizontal Stabilizer, THS. The trim tank is located in the Trimmable Horizontal Stabilizer. The inner tanks are located in the wings. The outer tanks are located in the wings. The center tank is located in the center fuselage. Each inner tank is divided into two parts. The division is fitted with a split valve, which is normally open. The total usable fuel quantity is approximately 111,000 kilograms, standard density. Each inner tank contains two collector boxes, which are always kept full, about 1,000 kilograms, in order to maintain a fuel reserve for the pumps and to provide negative acceleration protection. Each collector box contains two fuel pumps, a main pump and a standby pump. Each main fuel pump feeds its respective engine. Note, one fuel pump can supply fuel to the 4 engines. The fuel flow to each engine can be stopped using the corresponding engine low-pressure valve. The standby fuel pumps operate automatically if there is a failure of their related main pump or if this main pump is switched off. The center tank also contains two fuel pumps to transfer fuel from the center to the inner tanks. Two transfer valves allow fuel to transfer from the outer tanks to the inner tanks. There is one cross-feed valve associated to each engine. This allows any pump to supply any engine. Using the cross-feed valves, the crew can also manually control the fuel balance. All cross-feed valves automatically open in electrical emergency configuration or during jettison operation. Note, cross-feed valves 2 and 3 also open in the event of aft transfer with the center tank empty. A trim tank isolation valve and a trim tank inlet valve allow fuel to transfer between the trim tank and the inner tanks. Note, only one valve is shown. The fuel system also feeds the auxiliary power unit. A low pressure valve is fitted to cut off fuel to the auxiliary power unit. This represents the basic fuel system. We will now see how this information is presented to the pilots in the cockpit. Click on the schematic to display the ECAM fuel page. You can see that all the components we have talked about are displayed on the ECAM page. Let's briefly review them using the ECAM fuel page. The trim tank in the trimmable horizontal stabilizer. The center tank in the center fuselage. The inner tanks, the outer tanks in the wings. The main fuel pumps. The standby fuel pumps. The center tank fuel pumps. The engine low-pressure valves. The crossfeed valves. The APU LP valve. The trim tank isolation valve and the trim tank inlet valve represented by a single valve symbol. For the purposes of clarity, we have left out some indications. Click on the ECAM page to display them. These indications are trim tank fuel quantity, outer tank fuel quantity, inner tank fuel quantity, center tank fuel quantity, collector box fuel quantity, engine fuel used quantity, total fuel used quantity, fuel on board, FOB, and tank temperature. The fuel panel is located on the overhead panel. The inner tank split push-button switches and the jettison push-button switches are also located on the overhead panel. The inner tank split push-button switches are used to divide the inner tanks into two parts through an emergency isolation valve. The jettison push-button switches are used to arm and to activate the jettison system. This system will be explained in more detail in the abnormal operation module. Note: the emergency isolation valves are not represented on the ECAM fuel page. Each inner tank main fuel pump is controlled by its associated push-button switch on the fuel panel. Each standby fuel pump is controlled by its respective push-button switch. Each center tank fuel pump is also controlled by its associated push-button switch. The center tank transfer push-button switch is used to manually control the transfer from the center to the inner tanks. Each cross-feed push-button switch enables the pilot to connect the engine and its associated pump to the cross-feed line. It is also used to connect or to isolate the left and right-hand sides of the fuel system. The trim tank feed selector controls the operation of the trim tank isolation valve and the trim tank inlet valve. The trim tank mode push-button switch and the outer tank transfer push-button switch enable fuel transfer. You will operate all these controls and see their indications in more detail in the normal and abnormal operation modules.